My wife cheated. While I was deploying overseas, so I came home early, took the house, the car, and every trace of myself from her life. I'm a 30-year-old guy, and I thought my wife was my anchor while I was out at sea. Her name's Lacey. We met when I was stationed in Norfolk, and from the beginning, she had that calming kind of warmth. The type of woman who made you believe the world could slow down just long enough to breathe. When I got the news that I'd be deployed for 7 months, she didn't flinch. She held my hand, kissed my cheek, and said, "We'll get through this like we always do." The night before I left, we stayed up until 3 a.m. talking about the dumbest things. Favorite movies. Our first date. Whether the dog prefers her cooking or mine. We wrote each other letters. Old school, sealed with wax, and promised we'd open them whenever we missed each other too much to handle. I memorized her face that night. The freckles on her nose, the way she tucked her hair behind her ear, the sleepy lilt in her voice. When I kissed her goodbye on the pier, it felt cinematic. I was in uniform, duffel over my shoulder, her mascara smudged from crying. She clung to me like letting go would break her. "Come home safe, babe," she whispered. "I'll be right here," I believed her, with every beat of my heart. As the ship pulled away, I watched her shrink into the distance until she became a blur. Then nothing. I carried her photo in my chest pocket. I checked my phone even when I knew there'd be no signal. I held on to the thought of her waiting for me, that no matter the chaos I'd face out there, I had a home to come back to. But home has a way of changing when you're not looking. Looking back, there were signs. Small ones, easy to miss when you're in love and desperate to believe the best in someone. The week leading up to deployment, Lacey seemed distracted. She'd check her phone and turn the screen away. She started going out with co-workers more, claiming it was just stress relief before the loneliness set in. One night, she came home at 1 a.m. smelling like cologne I didn't wear. I asked her about it, jokingly because I didn't want to seem jealous, and she laughed it off. "Some guy spilled his drink on me. Don't go getting military crazy on me already." I let it go. I wanted to let it go. We'd spent years building this life. I had just added her to all my accounts, insurance, car title, even gave her access to the emergency savings we were growing for a down payment. She was my person, my wife. And in the military, when you're gone for months, that kind of trust isn't optional. It's everything. I didn't want to be that guy, the one who polices his wife from 7,000 miles away, because some guys ruin it for everyone with their insecurities. Still, something in my chest didn't settle. The way her kisses felt a little more rushed. The way she avoided eye contact during our last dinner out. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. When I asked her what was wrong, she said, "I just hate that you're leaving. Can we not do this right now?" So I shut up. I held her. I chose not to see what was probably already happening in the background, but even then, part of me had started writing a version of this story, one where I'd come home to a woman who wasn't mine anymore. I just didn't know how. Close to the truth that fear would turn out to be. Deployment. Life is chaos and routine wrapped in steel. Your body's in constant motion, but your heart stays frozen in time. I counted the days by her texts. At first, they came like clockwork. Morning updates, pictures of our dog, the "I miss you" messages that kept me sane while sleeping in a steel bunk beside diesel engines. Then, they slowed. At first, I made excuses for her. She's probably busy with work. Maybe the Wi-Fi's acting up. She'd always said she wasn't good with long distance. But by month 2, I was sending 3 messages for every one I got back. And her replies, they felt generic. Short, emotionless, no pet names. No, can't wait to kiss you. Just, things are good, and hope you're doing okay. I started checking her socials whenever we hit port. Something felt off. She hadn't posted a single picture of us since I left. Not one. Before, she was the kind of woman who'd make countdown stories and anniversary reels. Now, it was selfies, brunches, and vague captions about new beginnings and taking care of yourself first. I remember standing on a deck at 2 a.m., freezing wind biting my face, scrolling through a picture of her smiling at some bar with unfamiliar faces. My gut twisted. I didn't recognize the people. I didn't recognize her. I messaged her, asking if everything was okay. She replied 5 hours later, "Yeah, just tired lately. Love you, though. Love you, though." It read like a courtesy, not a confession. I reread our old letters that night, hers from before I left, when she promised she'd be counting the days, promised I was her world. But the silence she was giving me now spoke louder than any of her words ever had. And deep down, I knew something was breaking, and it wasn't the distance. 3 months in, the ocean had started to feel quieter, like it was holding its breath with me. I remember getting a message from my buddy Tom. He's stationed back home, works maintenance at the base near our neighborhood. "Hey man, not sure if this is anything, but I saw Lacey out the other night. She wasn't alone." My stomach dropped before I even opened the photo he sent. It was blurry, taken from a distance. But there she was, my wife, wearing the same denim jacket I bought her on our first anniversary, holding hands with a guy in a black hoodie. They were laughing, her head tilted the same way she used to when she was with me. The caption on her Instagram post from that same night read, "Happiness looks good on me." I stared at the screen until my vision blurred. My hands were shaking so bad I had to step outside to breathe. The ocean air burned my lungs. Every thought screamed, "This has to be a misunderstanding." That night I called her. My voice was steady, but inside I was falling apart. "Lacey," I said, "who's the guy in your pictures?" She sighed, irritated. "Oh my God, are you serious right now? That's just a friend. You're being paranoid again. I can't even go out without you assuming the worst." "I'm not assuming," I said quietly. "I just didn't expect you to look that happy with someone else." Silence. Then she hung up. I sat there with the phone pressed to my ear long after the call ended. Around me, the ship hummed like a heartbeat that wasn't mine. I wanted to believe her. I wanted to believe that love could survive distance. But a part of me, the part that still felt her pulling away that last week, knew that something had already changed, and I was powerless to stop it. A week passed. I didn't hear from her at all. No texts, no calls, just radio silence. I told myself maybe she was mad about the confrontation. Maybe she needed space. But the truth was settling in like salt water in an open wound. I wasn't the one she was thinking about anymore. Then I got a message on Facebook from someone I hadn't spoken to in years. Maya, an old friend of Lacey's from her retail job back in the day. I almost didn't open it, but curiosity and dread won. Her message started simple. "I know it's not my place, but you deserve to know the truth. Lacey's been seeing someone named Connor. It's not just casual. She brings him around like he lives there now. I only found out after I bumped into her at a bar and saw them together. She introduced him as her boyfriend." I read the message 3 times. Boyfriend, not friend. Not someone I'm getting to know. "Boyfriend," I wrote back, trying to keep it calm. "Are you sure?" She replied instantly, "I'm sorry. I know this hurts. I only told you because you've always been good to her. You didn't deserve this." I thanked her, barely able to type. My throat felt like it was closing. Connor. A stranger was in my home, sleeping in my bed, eating from the dishes we picked out together, petting the dog that used to wait by the door for me. I sat on the edge of my bunk, fists clenched so tight my knuckles cracked. That was the moment the fantasy shattered completely. She wasn't waiting for me. She hadn't just moved on. She'd replaced me while I was out risking my life. And the worst part? She didn't even have the decency to tell me herself. It was around 2 a.m. ship time when Maya messaged me again. "By the way," she wrote, "Lacey doesn't know I told you. She actually bragged about keeping you in the dark. Said you're too far away to do anything about it." That line hit harder than everything else combined. She wasn't just cheating. She was gloating. She told her friends she'd ease out of the marriage once I got back. That she didn't want to deal with the drama while I was still overseas. That made me feel disposable. Like I was just a piece of paperwork she could file away when it was convenient. I sat alone in the narrow corridor just outside the sleeping quarters. My heartbeat thudded against my ribs like it was trying to break free. A sailor passing by asked if I was okay. I nodded. I wasn't. That night I didn't sleep. I stared at the ceiling and made a decision. I wasn't going to wait around and walk into the wreckage of my own life. I pulled rank, spoke to my commanding officer, explained the situation in terms we both understood. Personal security compromised, domestic status unstable, potential risk to focus. He didn't ask for details, just nodded and said he'd see what he could do. 2 days later, I had confirmation. I was going home early, quietly. Official reason? Family emergency. I didn't tell a soul. Not Maya, not Lacey, not even Tom. If she wanted to play dirty, she forgot who she married. I've cleaned blood off steel and watched waves swallow silence. She thought distance meant weakness, but now I had a plan, and I was coming home not as a broken man, but as a ghost she wouldn't see coming. Landing back on U.S. soil felt nothing like I thought it would. There was no fanfare, no welcome home, no wife running into my arms. Just me, standing on a cracked curb at 6 a.m. with a single duffel bag slung over my shoulder and a hollow ache in my chest. I didn't go straight home. I rented a cheap sedan from a spot near the base, paid cash. I didn't want Lacey to get any hint I was back. She still thought I was halfway across the world, still checking in once a week from spotty Wi-Fi and trusting her with everything I had. The drive to our house was surreal. The same streets, the same gas stations, the same coffee shop where we used to argue over who paid. But it all felt colder now, foreign. When I pulled into the driveway, her car wasn't there. Good, I didn't want a confrontation yet. I wanted clarity. I wanted the truth to punch me in the face so I could stop hoping this was all some kind of twisted misunderstanding. I stepped inside with the spare key she forgot I still had. The second I opened the door, it hit me. There were 2 pairs of boots by the entrance. One was mine, the other wasn't. The house was a mess. Takeout boxes, cheap beer cans, one of his jackets draped across the back of the couch. And the worst part? All our photos, our wedding, our vacations, the ones I framed myself, were gone, replaced with generic wall art, like I never existed. Even the dog wasn't there. I stood in the living room, breathing in a life I no longer belonged to. She'd erased me while I was still alive, so I left without touching a thing. If she wanted a life without me, I'd give her exactly that, down to the last piece of me she thought she could claim. I spent the next 72 hours doing what I do best. Planning. Quietly. Precisely. No drama. Just execution. First stop, my lawyer. Military service has its perks, and one of them is knowing how to cover your ass. Since the house was bought using my VA loan before we got married, it was in my name. So was the car. So was the emergency savings account I'd been quietly feeding for years. She had access to all of it. But she didn't own any of it. Within days, I had everything in motion. Locks were changed. Her name removed from all permissions. I froze the shared card and drained the savings into a separate, protected account. The dog, I found out she'd given him to a neighbor to make things simpler. I picked him up that night. He wagged his tail like I never left. The house felt like a crime scene when I walked back in, now under my control. I cleaned it top to bottom, packed every trace of her into boxes, clothes, makeup, bathroom products, even her half-used shampoo. I left the boxes in the garage. I didn't want her inside ever again. Then I left one final gift. An envelope taped to the front door. Inside was the divorce filing, a list of revoked access points, and a simple note. You said happiness looks good on you. Let's see how it looks when it's earned. She came home that night to a locked door, no car, and no money in the shared account. She called me 12 times in a row. I didn't answer. For once, I controlled the silence. She thought I'd come home heartbroken, begging for answers. Instead, I came home and took back every single piece of the life she tried to steal. It took her less than a week to find me. I was walking out of my lawyer's office when she showed up, parked across the street like she'd been waiting. She stormed toward me, no shame, no apology, just fury. Her hair was a mess, eyes puffy like she hadn't slept, but her tone was pure entitlement. You blindsided me, she snapped, stopping inches from my face. You don't just erase someone like that. I didn't say a word at first, just looked at her. She wasn't wearing her ring. You erased yourself the day you brought another man into my house, I said quietly. She blinked, taken aback. It wasn't like that. I almost laughed. No? Because from what I saw, it was exactly like that. You made your choices, Lacey. I just matched them with mine. She started crying then, big, heaving sobs. But not the kind that say, I'm sorry. The kind that say, I lost. I didn't know what to do without you. She shouted. You were gone. I was lonely. And I was risking my life halfway around the world, thinking you were holding it down back here. People were watching now. Passers-by slowing, heads turning. I didn't care. I wasn't yelling. I wasn't causing a scene. I was just done. You had the house, the car, my trust, and every bit of love I had left, I said. And you spit on all of it, her voice cracked. So what now? You just cut me off? That's it? I looked her in the eye one last time. Lacey, I didn't come back to fix anything. I came back to bury it. Then I turned and walked away. Not because I didn't care, but because I finally did. About myself. The calls started 2 days later. Voicemails I never opened. Texts I never replied to. At first, they were furious. Accusations. Claims that I had ruined her life. Then they turned desperate. I made a mistake. I miss you. Can we talk? I didn't respond. I didn't even read most of them. I had nothing left to give her. Not love, not forgiveness, not even anger. Just silence. Then came the message from Tom. Hey, just a heads up. Connor dumped her. Guess things got too real when you came home and took everything. She's crashing on someone's couch downtown. Got fired from her job too. Thought you'd want to know. I didn't. Not really. But I let the words sit with me. It wasn't joy I felt. It wasn't satisfaction. It was release. Like a weight had finally rolled off my back. I didn't need revenge. Life had already served it. I scrolled back to one of her Instagram posts, the one that started it all. Happiness looks good on me. Now her profile was quiet. No new posts. No smiling selfies. Just echoes. A digital ghost of the woman who once promised to wait. I found myself standing in our old living room that night. Now mine again. The air was cleaner, like even the walls had let go of her. I poured a glass of whiskey, sat on the floor with the dog curled up next to me, and listened to the silence. This was my rock bottom, and somehow it didn't feel like failure. It felt like truth, the kind that guts you but also sets you free. I had lost a wife, but I had also found the line I'd never let anyone cross again, and from here on out, I was building alone, but on solid ground. The weeks that followed were quiet in a way I hadn't felt in years. Not just the absence of drama or voices or footsteps down the hall, but quiet in my head. The kind that lets you think without flinching. I started with the house, repainted the walls, tossed the cheap decor she'd bought during her influencer phase, replaced the bed, changed the scent of the laundry detergent. I didn't want a single trace of her left, not out of spite, but because I needed to reclaim the space as mine. I transferred to a different base across the state. Shorter hours, less combat prep, more room to breathe. I started taking the dog on early morning walks, just him, me, and the fog rolling off the lake nearby. No music, no podcasts, just my thoughts, and for the first time, they didn't hurt. I started journaling again, therapy through paper, writing down the things I didn't say out loud, like how I missed the version of her I thought was real. How betrayal doesn't just end love, it burns down every memory it touches. I tried dating again. Nothing serious. Just coffee, conversation, a few honest laughs. But I was different now. Cautious, quieter. I didn't give away pieces of myself for free anymore. Sometimes at night I'd catch myself staring at the ceiling, wondering what would have happened if I hadn't come home early. If I'd let her strip me down to an empty house and a broken heart. But then I'd hear the soft snore of my dog curled beside the bed, or the wind moving through the trees outside, and I'd remember. This silence, this peace, it was earned, and I wasn't going to let anyone take that from me again. A few months later, I found myself behind the wheel of my car, windows down, sunlight on my face, and the open road stretching out in front of me like a second chance. The dog was in the passenger seat, head out the window, tongue flapping in the breeze like he owned the world. And in that moment, maybe he did. Maybe we both did. There was no dramatic epiphany. No slow-motion montage of me rising from the ashes. Just a steady, quiet reclaiming. Piece by piece, breath by breath. I had taken back what was mine. Not just the house or the car, but myself. I used to think love was about giving someone all of you. Sacrifice, devotion, trust without question. But now I know. Love should never cost you your dignity, your self-worth, your sense of peace. Lacey never reached out again after the last failed voicemail. I assume she realized there was nothing left to say. I never blocked her. I didn't need to. She became irrelevant, a name with no weight, a chapter I finished and shelved without bitterness. The truth is, I didn't win by punishing her. I won by walking away without begging for closure, by refusing to be her victim, by becoming the man she never thought I'd be strong enough to become. The man who came back early, the man who said nothing, and took everything. That day, driving down that quiet back road with no destination, I smiled, genuinely. Not because I was healed, but because I was healing, and for the first time in a long time I wasn't chasing happiness through someone else's promises. I was building it, mile by mile, on my own terms.